Once upon a time in the heart of Lagos, a young woman named Zara walked the busy streets balancing a tray of ripe bananas on her head. The sun beat down mercilessly, but she kept moving, calling out to passers-by with a bright yet tired voice. She had no choice. Her family depended on her. At the end of the day, she returned to a half-built house, the only shelter she, her widowed mother Amina, and her little sister Zikora could afford. The walls had no paint, the roof leaked when it rained, and the cold wind blew through the cracks at night. Still, Zara kept her head high. "Mama, today was tough, but I made some sales," she said, placing some naira notes on the wooden table. Her mother, Amina, picked up the money. "It's not enough for Zikora's school fees, but at least we can eat tonight." "My daughter, you are trying, but I worry you should not suffer like this." Zara shook her head. "Mama, I will never beg. As long as I have my hands and legs, I will work." The next morning, just as Zara was arranging her bananas, Zikora came running, her eyes filled with tears. "Zara, Mama, the teacher sent me home," she said. "I can't come back until we pay my fees." Zara's face darkened. "But I begged her for time. I promised to pay soon. How can they do this to a child?" Zara knelt in front of her little sister and wiped her tears. "Zikora, don't cry. I will find the money. You will go back to school, I promise." Zikora sniffled. "But how? We barely have enough for food." Zara stood up, determination burning in her eyes. "I will work harder. I will wake up earlier. I will sell more bananas. No one will stop you from learning." Her mother held her hands, her voice breaking. "My daughter, may God bless you, but please be careful. Lagos is not kind to young girls." Zara forced a smile. "Mama, don't worry. I am strong. I will not break." As she stepped out into the bustling streets, her heart pounded. How would she raise the money in time? She had no idea, but one thing was certain. She would not fail her sister. The sun had begun to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Zara, tired from the long day, was arranging her last bunch of bananas when a sleek black car pulled up nearby. A tall man in a white shirt and polished shoes stepped out. His presence alone made heads turn. He walked straight to Zara's stall. "How much for a bunch?" he asked, his deep voice calm but firm. Zara looked up and sized him quickly. He was clearly wealthy, not someone she usually saw in this area. 600 naira, sir," she replied. He pulled out a 1,000 naira note and handed it to her. "Keep the change." Zara frowned. "No, sir, I cannot take extra money. Take another bunch to complete your money." Kofi raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Are you serious?" "Yes, sir, I work hard for every dime I make, and I don't take money I didn't earn." He let out a small smile and took another bunch. "Interesting people don't refuse free money these days." She simply nodded. "I believe in doing what is right." Kofi studied her for a moment. Most people would have grabbed the extra cash without question, but she had principles. It intrigued him. "All right then, thank you," he said and walked back to his car, his mind still on the young woman who refused his money. The next morning, as Zara arranged her bananas, she saw the same sleek car pull up again. Kofi stepped out and walked to her stall. She found it strange. What was he doing here again? "Good morning," he greeted. "I'd like some bananas." She handed him a bunch. 600 naira, sir." He gave her a 1,000 naira note again. "Keep the change." Zara sighed. "Sir, we did this yesterday. Take another bunch." Kofi smiled. "I just wanted to see if you would change your mind." "I won't," she said firmly. "If you want to give money away, help someone who truly needs it." That response made him even more curious. Over the next few days, Kofi kept returning, buying bananas, watching Zara interact with customers. He saw how she treated everyone with respect, never overcharged, and never accepted money she didn't earn. He had met many people in his life, but Zara was different, and he wanted to know why. One evening, as she packed up, Kofi finally asked, "Why do you refuse extra money? Most people would take it." Zara sighed and looked him in the eye. "Because my mother taught me that wealth without honesty is empty. I don't want free money. I want money that I worked for." Kofi nodded slowly, understanding. "You are rare, Zara," he said. She smiled. "I'm just trying to do what is right." As Kofi drove away that night, he made a decision. He needed to test her further. There was something special about Zara, and he wanted to see just how strong her honesty was. Inside a luxurious restaurant, Nadia, Kofi's fiancée, dressed in an expensive red gown, stirred the glass of wine in her hand. She was used to getting whatever she wanted. Kofi, sitting across from her, was deep in thought. His mind drifting to Zara and her stubborn honesty. Nadia noticed his distraction and rolled her eyes. "You've been acting strange lately. Don't tell me you're thinking about work or worse, some charity case," Nadia said. Kofi looked up, frowning. "It's nothing." She smiled. "Oh, please, I heard you've been visiting some street market every day." "Kofi, tell me you're not wasting your time on some commoner." "She's not a commoner," Kofi said, his voice firm. Nadia let out a short laugh. "Are you serious? You, Kofi Johnson, concerned about a banana seller? What's next, inviting her to dinner?" Kofi sighed, leaning back. "She has dignity, Nadia, something you wouldn't understand." Nadia laughed, sipping her wine. "Dignity doesn't pay bills, my dear. You're too soft. You should be focused on our wedding, not some girls selling fruit by the roadside." Kofi remained silent, but deep inside, he knew Nadia didn't understand, and maybe she never would. The next evening, Kofi found Zara closing up her stall. She looked exhausted, but she still managed a tired smile when she saw him. "You again?" she teased. "Bananas again?" Kofi smiled. "Not today." He paused. Then he remembered Zara had told him about her sister's school fees a day before. Then he took a deep breath. "Zara, I want to offer you a job." Zara's smile faded. "A job? Yes, I see how hard you work, but I also see that you struggle. I need someone to help keep my house in order. The pay is good, and it will help with your sister's school fees." Zara hesitated. The idea of working for a rich man felt strange. "Why me?" Kofi smiled. "Because I trust you." She bit her lip. The offer was tempting, but could she trust him? I need to think about it." Kofi nodded. "Take your time, but know this, opportunities don't always come twice." As he walked away, Zara stood still, her heart pounding. Could this be the chance she had been waiting for? When Zara walked into Kofi's large house, she felt a sudden chill. But it wasn't the air conditioning that made her shiver, it was the mean look from Nadia. Nadia hardly looked at Zara before making a face, clearly disgusted. "So, this is the help," Nadia said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Kofi, you must be joking." Kofi sighed. "Nadia, she's here to work. Treat her with respect." Nadia smiled. "Respect for a banana seller?" She walked around Zara, looking at her carefully. "I don't want to see a speck of dust in this house. You will scrub the floors, wash the dishes, iron my clothes, and make sure everything is spotless. Understood?" Zara nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Nadia smiled. "Good, and don't touch anything that doesn't belong to you." Zara swallowed her pride. She had faced worse. This was just another challenge. Later that evening, as Zara was mopping the floor, Nadia, accidentally, spilled a glass of juice. "Oh dear," Nadia said mockingly. "Clean that up, and be quick about it." Zara tightened her jaw but silently did as she was told. She could feel Nadia's eyes burning into her back, waiting for a reaction, but Zara wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Obina, Kofi's best friend, had been watching the scene unfold from the staircase. He had seen how Nadia treated Zara from the moment she arrived. He didn't like it that night. As Zara was carrying a heavy basket of laundry, Obina stepped in. "Let me help you with that." Zara looked up, startled. "No, sir, I can manage." Obina smiled. "Please don't call me sir, just call me Obina, and I insist." He took the basket from her hands with ease. Zara hesitated but allowed him to help. It was the first kind act she had experienced since stepping into the house. "You're different," she said softly as they walked toward the laundry room. Obina smiled. "How so?" "You treat me like a person." Obina stopped walking and turned to face her. "That's because you are one, Zara. Just because someone has money doesn't mean they are better than you." Zara looked away, not used to such kindness from a stranger. "Thank you." Obina leaned against the wall. "Don't let Nadia get to you. She has a nasty way of showing her insecurities." Zara frowned. "Insecurities?" "Yes," Obina said. "She's afraid she sees something in you that she will never have, true strength." Zara didn't know what to say. For the first time since she arrived, she felt a little less alone. The morning started like any other. But Zara could feel something was wrong. Nadia had been unusually quiet all day, her eyes cold and calculating. Then, just as Zara finished arranging the living room, Nadia's sharp voice cut through the silence. "Where are my clothes?" Zara turned, confused. "Ma'am?" Nadia held up an empty hanger, her face twisted with anger. "My red designer gown, it's missing. You took it, didn't you?" Zara's heart pounded. "I didn't take anything, ma'am. I would never steal." Nadia's eyes flared. "Liar!" Before Zara could react, a sharp slap landed across her cheek. The room went silent. Kofi, who had just entered, froze, his face darkened. "What is going on here?" Nadia turned to him, playing the victim. "She stole my dress. I knew taking in a street girl was a mistake." Kofi walked toward Zara, studying her. He knew the truth. Zara was many things, but a thief was not one of them. "Where is your proof, Nadia?" Kofi asked calmly. Nadia stammered. I don't need proof. Just look at her. You think she wouldn't steal?" Kofi's voice was cold. "I think you are looking for an excuse to humiliate her, and I will not allow it." Nadia's mouth fell open. "You're taking her side?" "I'm taking the side of truth," Kofi said. "And I've had enough. You need to leave, Nadia." Nadia's face twisted with anger. "You're throwing me out for her?" "For my peace?" Kofi said firmly. "Pack your things." Nadia stormed into the bedroom, grabbing her bags, her breath coming in angry bursts. She had always controlled Kofi, always gotten her way, but now he was slipping through her fingers because of a mere housemaid. She walked back into the living room. "You'll regret this, Kofi." Kofi crossed his arms. "I doubt it." Nadia turned to Zara, venom in her voice. "You think you've won? You're nothing but a common girl. Do you really believe you can replace me?" Zara lowered her head, refusing to respond. She didn't need to fight Nadia with words. Her dignity spoke for itself. Nadia laughed. "This isn't over." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The house fell silent. Kofi turned to Zara. "Are you okay?" She touched her sore cheek and nodded. "Yes, sir." He sighed. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." Zara shook her head. "I've been through worse." Kofi studied her for a moment. She was strong, stronger than he had realized. "You don't have to call me sir," he said. "Just Kofi?" Zara hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, Kofi." For the first time in days, the house felt lighter, freer. Kofi knew he had made the right decision, and for Zara, it was the beginning of something new. Zara was in the kitchen, rinsing plates. When Obina walked in, his usual cheerful face was serious. His hands tightened at his sides. She turned to him, surprised. "Obina, is everything okay?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. He took a deep breath. "Zara, I need to tell you something." She leaned her head. "What is it?" Obina hesitated for a moment, then looked her in the eye. "I like you. No, I love you." Zara froze. The words hung in the air between them, heavy and unexpected. She opened her mouth but couldn't find the right words. "I know you may not feel the same," Obina continued, his voice steady but tense. "But I had to say it. I can't keep it inside anymore." Zara swallowed hard. She cared about Obina. He had been kind to her, always looking out for her, but her heart belonged to someone else. "Obina, you are a good man," Zara said carefully. "And I respect you so much." She paused, gathering the courage to continue. "But I don't feel that way about you." Obina's shoulders dropped slightly, but he managed a small smile. "I had a feeling," he said. "I just needed to hear it." Zara's chest tightened. "I hope this doesn't change our friendship. You mean a lot to me." Obina exhaled and nodded. "Of course, I'd rather be your friend than lose you completely." She smiled weakly. "Thank you for understanding." Obina nodded again, then turned to leave. As he walked away, Zara felt a wave of guilt but also relief. She had been honest, but deep down, she knew her heart was already taken. Kofi sat in his study, pretending to go through documents, but his mind was elsewhere. He could hear Zara humming softly in the kitchen, and it made him smile without thinking. She had brought warmth into his house in a way he never expected. She was different from anyone he had ever known, strong, kind, and full of dignity, and now, he was realizing something else. He cared for her more than he should. He got up and walked to the doorway. Watching as she arranged the dining table, she turned and caught his gaze. "Kofi, do you need something?" she asked. Kofi cleared his throat. "No, I was just thinking." Zara smiled. "Thinking about what?" Kofi hesitated. He wanted to tell her, to let her know that she wasn't just a worker in his home, that she had become someone important to him, but what if she didn't feel the same? What if he ruined everything? "Nothing important," he finally said. "Just thank you for everything you do." Zara looked at him curiously. "I'm just doing my job." Kofi smiled slightly. "It's more than that." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy with words left unsaid. Then Kofi exhaled and stepped back. "Good night, Zara." "Good night, Kofi," she replied softly. As he walked away, Kofi knew one thing for sure: he was falling for her, but he wasn't sure if she saw him as anything more than her boss. Obina sat in the garden, staring at the stars. He had known Kofi for years, and he had never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at Zara. It was clear his best friend had feelings for her. A soft breeze blew, carrying voices from inside the house. Kofi was speaking to Zara, his voice softer than usual. Obina sighed. The truth was painful, but it was also clear: Zara's heart was not his to win. The next morning, Obina walked into the study where Kofi was reviewing documents. Kofi looked up and noticed the serious expression on his friend's face. "What's wrong?" Kofi asked. Obina gave a small smile. "Nothing, my friend. I just wanted to tell you that I see what's happening." Kofi frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Obina smiled. "You care about her, and she cares about you." Kofi exhaled. "Obina, I never meant." Obina raised a hand, stopping him. "You don't need to explain. I just wanted you to know I won't stand in your way." Kofi was silent for a moment, then he placed a hand on Obina's shoulder. "Thank you." Obina nodded. "Just don't waste time. A woman like Zara won't wait forever." Kofi smiled. "I hear you." That evening, Zara was about to leave for the market when Kofi called her into the living room. She hesitated, wiping her hands on her apron before stepping in. "Kofi, you wanted to see me?" she asked. Kofi motioned for her to sit. She did, feeling a bit nervous. "I know how hard you've worked to take care of your sister," Kofi said. "And I know school is important to you." Zara's eyes widened. "Yes, Kofi, it is." Kofi handed her an envelope. "I've paid for Zikora's school fees and yours." Zara's hands trembled as she took the envelope. "Kofi, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Kofi said with a small smile. "Say you'll go back to school and finish what you started." Tears welled up in Zara's eyes. "I thank you, Kofi, thank you so much." Kofi shook his head. "No need for thanks, just promise me one thing." Zara wiped her tears. "Anything." "Don't ever doubt your worth," Kofi said. "You deserve this, and so much more." Zara nodded, her heart full. She had always believed in working hard, but for the first time, someone else believed in her too. Obina had always been curious about where Zara lived. She had refused his offer to drop her off several times, always insisting she would find her way home. But one evening, as she walked away from the house, Obina quietly followed behind in his car, keeping a safe distance. When he saw her turn into an unfinished building, his heart clenched. He watched from afar as she disappeared inside, realizing that this was where she, her mother Amina, and little sister Zikora had been living all along. That night, he couldn't sleep. He thought about Zara's kindness, her strength, and how she never complained despite her struggles. He knew he had to do something, and so he started making secret plans to get her and her family a proper home. Days later, Obina finally led them to the surprise. Zara walked into the new apartment, her eyes wide with disbelief. The walls were solid, the roof had no holes, and the air smelled fresh, not of damp and dust like the unfinished building they had lived in for years. Her mother, Amina, covered her mouth, fighting back tears. "Obina, this is too much. Gemini can make mistakes, so double-check it." "Amina," Zara whispered, her voice shaking. Obina smiled. "No, Mama, you deserve a home, a real one." Zikora ran around excitedly, touching the furniture, the curtains, even the tiled floor. "Sister, we have a real house now." Zara turned to Amina, her eyes full of emotion. I don't know how to thank you, Obina. Obina smiled. Don't thank me, just live well. Take care of your mother and sister. Amina placed a hand on his shoulder. May God bless you, my son. You have done what no one else would. Obina's smile faded a little as he looked at Zara. He had stepped back, knowing her heart belonged to Kofi, but that didn't make it easy. Still, he had done what was right. As he turned to leave, Zara called out, Obina! He stopped and looked back. She took a deep breath. You are family now. Obina smiled, nodded, and walked away, knowing he had made the right choice. Kofi stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. His hands were in his pockets, his mind troubled. He had never been this nervous before. Zara knocked softly and stepped in. Kofi, you wanted to see me? Kofi turned, his heart pounding. Zara, sit. She sat on the edge of the couch. Kofi hesitated for a moment, then finally spoke. There's something I've been wanting to say, he began, his voice unusually unsteady. Something I've been holding back. Zara frowned. Kofi? Kofi exhaled deeply. I have feelings for you, Zara. Strong feelings. She froze, her heart slamming against her chest. You do? Yes. He walked closer, his voice softer. I don't see you as just someone who works for me. You are more than that. You mean something to me. Zara looked down at her hands. Kofi, Tobias, he corrected gently. Call me Tobias. She swallowed. Tobias, if we start something, what if it ruins everything? He knelt in front of her, looking into her eyes. Then we build again together. Silence stretched between them, then slowly, a smile formed on Zara's lips. For the first time, she let her heart speak. I care about you too, she whispered. Kofi smiled, taking her hands in his. Then let's not waste any more time. Obina sat across from Kofi in the living room, a small smile on his face. He could see the change in his friend, the happiness in his eyes whenever Zara's name was mentioned. You love her? Obina said simply. Kofi leaned back. Yes, I do. Obina nodded. Then I am happy for you. Kofi looked at him carefully. You're sure? You once. Obina raised a hand, stopping him. I once hoped, but I see the way she looks at you, Kofi. She was never mine to love. Kofi let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Thank you, Obina. Obina smiled. But don't think you get to be the only lucky one. One day, I'll find my own banana seller. They both laughed, the tension between them finally gone. Their friendship was stronger than any feelings that had come between them. Months passed, and Zara's life changed in ways she had never imagined. She continued to work for Kofi, but now she also attended school, studying in the evenings after finishing her tasks. Kofi made sure she had everything she needed. One evening, Kofi found her sitting at the dining table, books spread out in front of her. She was deep in thought, writing notes. You're working hard, he observed. She looked up and smiled. I have to. I don't want to waste this chance. Kofi sat beside her. You earned it, Zara. No one gave it to you. She sighed. Still, I couldn't have done it alone. He reached for her hand. And you won't have to, ever. Zara squeezed his fingers, feeling a warmth in her chest. The life she once dreamed of was finally within reach, and she had someone by her side who believed in her. It was a warm evening, and lights made the small compound look cozy. Amina and Zikora sat outside, chatting about the day's events. Suddenly, Kofi arrived, dressed in a fine suit, his face serious but kind. Zara stepped forward, confused. Kofi, what's going on? He smiled and took a deep breath. Then, in front of everyone, he slowly went down on one knee. Amina was shocked, and Zikora clapped her hands in excitement. Zara's heart pounded as she stared at him, speechless. Zara, Kofi began, his voice steady. From the moment I met you, I saw a woman of strength, kindness, and honesty. You changed my life in ways I never imagined. I don't want another day to pass without you by my side. Zara's hands covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Kofi brought out a small box and opened it, revealing a beautiful ring. Will you marry me? Tears rolled down Zara's cheeks. She looked at her mother, who was smiling and nodding, then at Sakura, whose eyes were wide with joy. Yes, yes, Kofi! She cried. The moment she said it, cheers erupted from the family. Kofi stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, pulling her into a warm embrace. You have made me the happiest man, Kofi whispered. Zara laughed through her tears. And you have made me the happiest woman. The wedding day was like a dream. The ceremony was held in a beautiful hall, decorated with fresh flowers and golden lights. Friends, family, and even some of Zara's old customers from the market were there to celebrate. As Zara walked down the aisle in a simple but elegant white dress, she felt like she was floating. Her days of struggling in the hot sun, selling bananas to survive, felt like a distant memory. She had worked hard, stayed honest, and now she was stepping into a new life with the man she loved. Kofi stood waiting, his eyes filled with admiration. When she reached him, he took her hands and smiled. You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, Zara. Zara blushed. And you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. The vows were exchanged, and when the officiant finally said, You may now kiss the bride, the room erupted in cheers as Kofi pulled Zara close and kissed her gently. At the reception, Obina walked up to them, smiling. I told you I would find my own banana seller one day, he joked. But for now, I will just enjoy your happiness. Zara laughed and hugged him. You will always be family. As the evening went on, Zara looked around at the smiling faces, the love that surrounded her, and the man beside her. Her journey had been tough, but she had never given up, and now she had everything she had ever dreamed of. With Kofi holding her hand, she knew one thing for sure: this was only the beginning of a beautiful life together. Zara's story teaches us that honesty, hard work, and kindness will always open doors to greater things. No matter how hard life gets, never lose your integrity. The right people will see your value, and your time will come. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to read from you. And guess what? There's another exciting story coming in a few days. Make sure to subscribe to my channel.